No. Well, I'm afraid that I did this morning in bed very quickly. So I just thought I'd talk a little bit about our lives up to Gore, really. And so I was born in Dunedin.
Yay!
Yay for Dunedin. And I don't have many memories of Dunedin, because I don't know how old I was when I shifted to Lumsden. But I am told that when I was born in a corridor, and I had lots of black curly hair, and Mum first saw me with a little pink ribbon in my curls. I'm told that. But
That was Dad and I put it in.
Probably. And it was the biggest snow Dunedin had had for years and years and years. And Dad said that when he walked home, he just walked right over the top of the hedge. That's how bad it was and how long it lasted, because it was frozen. And we shifted to Lumsden, and then my memories do start. And Mum and Dad had a shop there. And one of the biggest memories I've got, and it is a memory, I thought about this, but I've thought about it over the years, but it's a real memory, it's not what I've been told, and it was when Nairi was born, and we were taken to the maternity hospital, and the old sister there used to drink a bit, and so if she went out the back, the mothers knew that they were quite safe to do whatever they liked. And so Dad popped us through the window, and we were able to sit on Mum's bed, because you weren't allowed into the maternity hospitals those days. And I saw this little tiny baby, and everyone was talking about it having red hair. I had no idea what that meant, because I had a red-headed brother, so to me, I don't know what they were talking about. And all this, I remember definitely going through my head. And so I do remember, and it was lovely living close to my nana, because I loved her dearly, and we used to go there a lot. In fact, the photos that were up there of us with our, are we on the tracks on that one? And that's taken at Nana and Pop's anyway. Yes, and then we shifted on, and we shifted to Mosburn, and that's when memories are very strong, really, because that's where I started school. And a house was being built for us in the little town of Mosburn, and we had to live out in the country. And so we had a ride into school most days, but we had to walk home. And I had to walk home with Noel and these Gallagher boys, and they were quite naughty to me. Gillard boys. They were very naughty to me. And they'd run ahead of me and do all these sort of things, didn't you?
No. They did, the Gillars did.
You did. No. And another story there, Nairi was just a wee toddler, and Noel was always the leader, so off we go to see the beehives, and somehow he took a lid off and threw a brick into the beehive, and there was bees everywhere. He's looking at me, bees everywhere, and I was trying to grab Nairi and say, run, 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 and these bees swarmed us, and we got very bad.
Got stung in the ear, yeah.
We got stung.
Nairi didn't get any stings because she didn't run.
Now the intelligent one.
Well, she was so tiny, I suppose she's just fascinated. Yes. And so...
But we did learn the lesson that the beehive is only interesting when you throw a brick in. It's not a bit interesting if you just lift the lid off.
And then we shifted to Waikika. And those down south will know all these places. They're not far apart. And so we shifted to Waikika, where Dad was the store manager there. And yeah, heaps and heaps of memories there, because I was getting older by then. I was 6 or 7. And walking to school, we had to walk, seemed forever, and I went there recently, and it was just round the corner. But everything seemed such a long, long way in those days, because people didn't take you anywhere in cars, you walked most places. And there we had Daisy the cow, we used to go down to the milking shed where Mum was milking the cow, and she would squirt milk, hot milk, into our mouths. And we loved it. Yes, you wouldn't be allowed to do that now, probably. And behind there was a paddock, and we made huts upon huts upon huts upon huts in the broom. So we had lots of rooms. We'd have a kitchen and bathrooms and all this sort of thing. Do you know what broom is?
Yeah, it's not a type of bush.
Yeah, a type of bush, and it's yellow, and Nana can still smell it, because it brings back lovely childhood memories of making huts in the broom. And so we had lots and lots of fun there. And one time there was a what you call a cloudburst, and the sky just opened up and just poured with rain, and just down the bottom of the hill it was like a lake. It all gathered there, and we were allowed to run down and have fun in the lake before it all drained away. I remember that very distinctly. It was good fun. People were in boats in it and all sorts of things. And in that, at school, we had a wee stove in our classroom, and so we used to take our potatoes, wrap them up, and it wouldn't have been tin foil in those days. We wrapped them up with something. Anyway, the potatoes went in the oven in the firebox, which was in our classroom, and at lunchtime we took the potatoes out and we ate them. And they were yummy. Anybody else remember doing that?
Yes, but we didn't wrap them in anything.
Maybe they weren't.
No, just put the potatoes in the firebox.
Anyway, they were yummy.
In the ash pan.
Yes.
They were.
So we each classroom had its own little firebox. Yes. And I'll just tell you, I'll just diverse for a little minute and tell you, Noel can correct me if I'm wrong, but
You are. No.
my mother had 5 brothers, and the teacher that they had lived at their house. And one day these brothers got to school before the teacher, and somehow, and don't ask me how, but they managed to get the teacher up the tree. And they wouldn't let the teacher back down again. The only thing is that eventually the teacher did get down, and she got home to Papa and Nana's before the boys did. So they were in big trouble when they got home. And I have no idea whether that teacher stayed at that school or not. Probably she didn't.
See, I think that the way I was always told the story,
I knew there'd be another story.
well, and maybe another story, was that the older boys in the school, they put the younger children high up the tree,
Right.
and the older boys went lower in the tree,
Right.
and they wouldn't come down when the teacher arrived.
Oh, right. Well, I thought they put the teacher up the tree.
No, I didn't think so. Yeah.
Okay.
So the teacher had to go home, and the rest of the story
Is
is
right.
right. Yeah, but a lot of her brothers left school by then.
So you see, children, everyone thinks children are naughty today, and there's all sorts of stories on television about what children do.
Yeah.
Children were very different in those days, weren't they? Yeah. And then we shifted to Gore, and we had to live in a caravan in a camping ground because we didn't have a house. And eventually our mother and father got a house, and we lived there, well, really till our father died, and our mother shifted to a smaller place. But one of the stories there, we used to have a lot of fun there when we first shifted, because there was quite a lot of children in that area. And one of the stories was that Mum had thrown out some pears to I told you this one. Mum had thrown out some pears to the chooks, and of course they were fermented pears, so you can imagine adults what happened to the chooks. And we were told we weren't allowed to look at these, you see, but Noel, always being the leader, said, "Come with me, come with me, come with me." So we go through a hole in the hedge, and we climbed up from Hamilton's side of the hedge, and we lay on top of the hedge and watch these chooks wobbling all around the place. And yes, I don't know whether Mum ever knew that or not. And another thing that we did, or Noel and I did, led by Noel, he said he's so innocent, he was such a mischief. Jack, your granddad was a real mischief. He really was. Yeah. Well, no, it's not. Oh, wait a minute. Now I've got the wrong one. Who's granddad? Oh, the children aren't here. Jordan's here. Your granddad was a real mischief, Jordan, so don't ever let him discipline you. Father occasionally used a leather strap on us, not very often. He probably used it less than I did on my kids, but anyway, which they remind me. Noel decided that we should cut it up. So we cut up the strap and we put it down the well, but of course we didn't know, we hadn't clicked that leather floated. So here Dad lifts the top of the well and here's all the leather chopped up and all floating. Do you not remember that?
I remember that. I don't remember what happened after it.
Oh, you know, he found
I know what should have happened.
He found it. I was just glad it was him who found it, not Mum. Yeah. And one lovely, lovely memory in Gore from my childhood is walking to school with our dad down through Heaton Valley. And he used to sing with us. He was a great singer. And he would sing and we would skip and dance. And it was just a highlight, a lovely memory of my dad growing up in Gore. So I'll stop because you could go on.
Thank you.
Is this grandma's turn?
Very much.
I hope I can talk to my
Go hard, Grandma.
Well, it's nice being the youngest, isn't it?
You get the pick of everything now.
So,
Got me.
Got you. I mean.
anyway, I just want to start off with a big thank you to Paul for getting this day underway for us all. I think it was just before Amy's wedding time that I said to Paul, we really do need to have a family reunion at some stage, but I'm not sure what to do. And he said, forget about it, Mum, our generation will do it. And so I just want to say thank you to Paul. And then he did come back to me at one stage and he said, well, where do we go from here, Mum? And then he said, I think I'll just ring Janice and ring Christopher, and they can ask their families about the day and the time. And so thank you for the rest of the guys for doing that for us. And I really want to say thank you too to my family for travelling all the way. It's a big, big ask of you all, and I do really, really appreciate it. Because some of you are going back home tonight and you've only just got here.
Yes.
And so thank you guys. Well, I had a great mum and dad. They didn't have very much, but we never missed out on other things of family. They were very, very generous parents to us. They were great parents to me. Their Christian faith was a real part of their life. It was a part, and it was a practical faith. And they taught me a lot of good values for my life. And I just say thank you to Mum and Dad for that. It was a big thing. I know we were known as the Butler family going to church, St Andrew's Church, and we'd all get out on a Sunday morning, we'd get going down the hill, and many, many times we'd be singing along as we went, Jean and I would be dressed in our little green frocks with our little green berets that Mama knitted for us, and they were absolutely beautiful. And Noel would have his trousers and tie on with that. But it was a big thing, and it was really quite a witness to the families around us, that what Mum and Dad did and how we all got along. Yeah, it's very. I just want to say a wee bit about this. It's very, very interesting. You'll see on the front page that I'm named Nairi Catherine Heslip, spelt with a K. When we went to go overseas, I had to go to get my passport, and I went to the Lumsden post office at that time, and they said to me, "No, we haven't got a Nairi Catherine, but we've got a Nairi Kathleen." And I said, "Well, I'm not the Nairi Kathleen. I'm a Nairi Catherine." By this stage we were married, the farm, the children had a Nairi Catherine, so everything was Nairi Catherine. And they said, "Oh, do you think you're the same girl? You know, you were born on the 27th of February 46, and I said, "Yes." So I said, "Oh well, perhaps my father made a mistake." So I realised he made a mistake, so off we go to the lawyer, and he said, "Well, Nairi, it's too much to change, so we'll have to go deep hole to change all this." So that was a big thing for me, because I wasn't sure then if Mum and Dad wanted me to be Nairi Kathleen or Nairi Catherine, which I'd always been. So we talked about it and prayed about it, and we decided that we'd go for the Nairi Catherine. So I went deep hole and changed it, but I'll never forget that day being there and signing away Kathleen and taking up Nairi. Then there was the big question about, was the Catherine a K or a C? So you'll see there that I went for the K. We had a daughter and we called her Catherine. She went for the K. Mum was always known as a K. But on the front page here, you'll see that Mum was a C.
Yeah.
And on this page here, you'll see that Mum was a K.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting. So that's why we've gone the K.
It depends which documents you take.
So, yeah, I know there was a big muddle up with Pop registering Mum too. Before us, when we went to Gore, we had a very tiny house in Gore, and it was really lots of fun for kids. When we had to get into our bath, do you know what happened? Well, there was a little bathroom, and it was a long bath, and it had lids that came down over the top of us. So if Jean and I were sitting in the bath together, and there was a knock, knock, knock at the back door, Mum would say, "Quick, you two, get down." So we'd lie down and she'd pull the lids down. And people would come in and she'd pull the lids up. And we'd pop our heads back out again, very pleased with ourselves. So, yeah, but we did. We had a very, very good family upbringing. We had lots of fun as brothers and sisters. Jean used to take me off into the pictures with her, and I didn't like it. I didn't like cowboys and Indians, so she said, "Oh, you sit down on the floor." So I would just sit down on the floor through all the pictures, and we'd come again. And the other naughty thing we used to do, really naughty thing we used to do, we used to love going to the swimming pool. And the old swimming pool was on the other side of the railway line. And Mum would tell us that we had to come home by 3 o'clock or whatever the time was. And we'd always be late because we loved in the pool. But you know, there were always trains going across that line when it was time for us to come home. So we'd be stuck on one side and we couldn't get over the line. And that was a big fib we used to tell our mother. But Jean used to lead the way. I was just the baby.
I'll tell the story of the dentist and you're not careful.
No, we had lots of good fun. But I just want to say everything, to finish really today, be proud that we're butlers. Put on a good smile on your faces and own up to it, and we just love that blood in us, don't we? Yeah, and that's what Grandma and Granddad would have wanted to. They were very, very special. They would have loved all you kids, all of you kids. And I know I've got that feeling that Grandma and Granddad are here with us today. And so I'm not going to go on. I think we've had enough, but there is one more wee thing I want to say to you. When Grandma went up north, she brought home this lovely, lovely plate that we've always had on our walls ever since. And it just says, I have no greater joy than to hear my children walk in the truth. And that's so real, isn't it? And that was Grandma. And she always thought of those things. And we can be thankful today that we're just all a lovely Christian family. And I just wonder how many families think like that today and have really got Jesus in their hearts. And so I just want to finish really and just say that, it was a great, great life. You know, another thing perhaps I could finish with too, and I should have finished with that. Polio used to be around in Gore, and the bars were shut. And this is what my parents were like. They would pack us up for tea. We'd all get on our bikes, and Mum would pack up our tea, and off we'd go to the river to have our swim. And we did lots and lots of family things together like that. And it's so important these days, isn't it, to do things as a family. And I want you all to hang on to that, and all of us. And it's still important to do things as a family. And again, I just say thank you all, and it's just been a very, very special day. Thank you.
So has anybody else got a special memory, a short special memory of Grandma and Granddad? The next generation, you could teach it around the room. Whether it's a smell, whether it's a feeling, whether it's a touch. Or I can remember the smell of Grandma's fur coat in church. Door handle, just different things. Lots of stories. Painting my old trick with Granddad. Still remember the day I found out they died. But anybody else?
Paul's still got Granddad's hat in Tiana.
Yeah. Anybody else want to stand up? Don't come up front. Just shout it out.
I just remember when we were at Grandma and Granddad's one time and we got 40 cents and there were 10 grandchildren and we went for a walk together down the road and we went to the shop and we got 10 K-bars. Oh, cents each. Does anyone else remember that?
K-bars ruled.
Yeah.
Mark had to look after you.
That's where my pocket money went to.
I would like to acknowledge what wonderful in-laws they were. Family was very important and all occasions were centred around the grandchildren and the family. They were always there for us and came and celebrated all occasions. And the children's baptisms, and they would have really loved today, all the children together.
One of the significant things about Grandma and Granddad Butler was that Granddad Butler was no good cutting the meat. It was always Grandma Butler that cut the meat, whether it was raw meat or whether it was cutting the roast like we had for dinner today. That hasn't carried on with Nori.
I wouldn't be allowed to.
That was the same with Dad. Jean was talking about the confusion of, about the confusion of names. When we were down in Oamaru recently, a couple of years ago, then I went into the library there to do some research on the Watsons, on Grandma. And it turns out that in the school she was recorded as Martha Watson. So I'd never known anywhere else for her to be called Martha. Because names are funny things in those days.
Anybody
That's
else
from Martha
got any?
Skinner.
Judy, you remember anything?
Oh no, just I loved staying with Grandma and Granddad. It was a long trip down, but I loved it when I was there. It was always good fun, and with the cousins, of course, as well.
Well, the trips back to Oamaru for Christmas.
Yep.
Drive the Datsun up. Sat on the middle bit. Mark drove, Catherine's in, and I sat in the middle.
That's right.
Right, if there's nothing else.
Oh, I got a couple of things.
Sorry,
I remember black balls. Granddad loved black balls.
yes.
Black balls.
The radio, the old brown radio in the garden with the cricket on.
Yeah.
Before the rugby.
And he's a great gardener and whistling.
Yeah.
Driving around a little H&J's van. Grandma girdled scones when you walked in, most times. Like Mum said, fairly plain house. I think pretty much they had a lot of their money was in envelopes in a tin, I think. if I remember
Yes, I
rightly.
did, Mark.
Little blue Austin something or other, which I could never get in reverse properly. Pushed down, I think, to get it going. But generous, loving, and then pass those attributes on. I looked at some of these photos. Genetics are a wonderful thing, aren't they? You guys see many likenesses? I see a few. I see Benjamin Butler and a couple of fellows here, particularly. I see Jessie Rennie Rigby and a number of the young ladies. I see an Arthur Robert Watson in a few as well. So I think genetically that's flowing on. The other genetical thing that probably some have picked up on is music. There's some great singers here. Granddad Butler used to sing. And I heard even if somewhere recently one of the people here was complimented on their singing, and it really probably goes back there. So there's lots of that. And I guess the other thing is the Christian faith. I look around, I don't know where everybody's at in their Christian walk, but I think that's really significant. And the Bible talks about generational things, and I think that's something that we can be really, really thankful for and need to press on with. Yeah.
That goes back into their parents as well.
I was going to ask how far.
Yeah, it goes back at least that far. I mean, I don't know about further back, because that's before my time.
Yeah. And the last thing I want to say is to all those who have married into us, good job, guys, you're doing it. And we're really glad to have you aboard. And I want to compliment Nigel, not far to go to meet George Thomas Watson.
Oh, there you go.
Well, Chris is on the way as well.
Anybody else?
Chris, you over there? Rodney?
Probably one of my strongest memories is going there. They always had a lolly jar.
Yeah.
Now, if that lolly jar didn't have lollies in it, you're always given some money. You went down through the hedge to the shops, brought some lollies and brought them back. They went in the jar, but they always got shared around. And I always remember Granddad smoking his pipe in the evenings.
He didn't have a pipe, Chris.
Yeah, I thought he
No,
did
he
too.
smokes though.
I thought it was a pipe. He had tobacco. I remember the tobacco smell.
He rolled it.
He rolled it.
He rolled it.
He knocked off smoking when I was at Bible college in '62.
He did very well.
63. Eh?
He did very well.
Always smell it.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah.
It's interesting how
Yep. Anything else? People want to share thoughts? No? Alright, well let's ask the three butlers to come up, and because there's three of them, we won't share one knife. They've told us they don't get on all the time, so we'll give them three knives. There you go.
Thank you. Cheers.
Catherine's.
Oh, you're so kind. Big one.
We are going to eat it afterwards, so yeah. Catherine's going to come. Grace isn't up yet? No? Okay. So we'll just have afternoon tea. So we still need to get food and photos, so
No one
yeah.
leave.
Hey?
No one leave.
Yeah, so maybe.
Snap.
Right there? Right. Come in closer, you three. Come closer. Jesse? The camera's up here, Uncle Noel.
up there.
Up, yes.
You want me to look up there?
Yeah, well just put your knife into it.
No, the cake's not up there.
Smile.
I think you need to
It's up there. You got a tape?
I think they need a hand.
Kiki. So we'll get a hot drink and a level, and then we'll get